For those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure everyone who's on here, we have an incredible opportunity tonight to hear from illustrious brother Lloyd Wilkerson. What year were you Master of our Lodge, Lloyd?
1985.
So past Master of our Lodge, and he has a slew of other accomplishments, both in his personal, military, and Masonic careers. So behind him is his son, Tom, for those of you who do not know him. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you, Lloyd. And
Tom is a member of our lodge too. So I have prepared a little presentation about why I became a Mason and some interesting sidelights, I think, that you might enjoy. And if I may read this to you, and you're going to record it, huh?
yes, sir. We're recording now.
And then I'll be happy to answer questions that you might have, not limited to what I'm going to say, but whatever you want to ask will be all right with me. So may I begin?
The floor is yours, sir.
Okay. I have the good fortune that two of my sons are Freemasons. Tom, who is here with me, is a member of our lodge, and Dick, who lives in Greenville, South Carolina, I think he's still a member of one of the North Carolina lodges. But Tom and Dick both are members of the Scottish Rite in New Bern, and both have been honored with 33rd degrees. The big question, I guess, is why did I become a Freemason? My father was a Freemason in Western Star Lodge number 88 in Troy, Tennessee. That's an area that has Reelfoot Lake alongside it, that the hardest earthquake that ever hit North America hit there in 1812, lasted several months. Mississippi River flowed northward. The Reelfoot Lake, 25 miles long, 15 miles wide, was sunk down out of the hills, and the lake was filled with water from the Mississippi River. So that's where I was born. My father was afflicted with Huntington's disease and took his own life when I was 14 years old and my sister was 10. The only knowledge I had about Freemasonry was the memory of my father's funeral, especially at the gravesite, which was performed beautifully. That's a 14-year-old boy's opinion of it. While I was not aware that they were Freemasons, 3 of my daddy's Masonic brothers counseled me on my behavior and my personal objectives, and sometimes senior citizen correction of things that I was doing while I was in high school. Then they came to me during my senior year and informed me that I should prepare to support my mother. To accomplish this obligation, I should go to college. They stated that the church had a fund that I could borrow without interest, provided I would attend Erskine College in South Carolina. One of them was my minister, one the president of the only bank in town, and the other was the undertaker. I did not know that they were Freemasons, but I took them up on their offer by working at Erskine, and with a small scholarship, the loan made it possible for me and my sister to attend Erskine College. Later, when I became an adult, I discovered that my benefactors were Freemasons in my father's lodge. And I decided that I would become a Mason. But Pearl Harbor held that up. In fact, when I became a serious genealogist, I wrote to the secretary of Western Star Lodge to inquire about my father's association with the lodge. He forwarded to me the minutes of the lodge for the meeting that was held for my father's funeral. He was puzzled. The master was not there for the opening of the lodge. Why? He pondered. I was able to tell him that the master of the lodge, the Reverend L.R. Neal, was busy with my family getting ready for the funeral. I'm having problems turning the page. The Reverend L.R. Neal was the master of the lodge at that time. And the banker had filled in and opened the lodge. I tried to join the Marine Corps in the day after Pearl Harbor, but they were overcommitted, building tent camps at Paris Island. And I was finally accepted in late January 1942. After a year in the Pacific, in Samoa, at Guadalcanal, and Australia, I was returned to the United States and assigned to duty in Pocatello, Idaho. There I met Jean Kaufman. Several of you knew her. She was an officer in the Eastern Star. Often I waited in the reception room for her to complete the meetings. In that room, I met several Masons who belonged to the Eastern Star. I was soon assigned to officer training at Quantico, Virginia, and Jean and I were married when I graduated. 25th of April, 1945. Within a few months, I went back to the Pacific. It appeared to me that I had little chance of getting back to Tennessee to join my father's lodge. So from China, I wrote a letter to my wife asking if she thought some of those Masons in her OES would help me and advise me about how to become a Mason in Pocatello when I returned home from China. A petition arrived in Tsingtao, China. I completed it and mailed it back. When I came home and was on a 30-day leave, the Grand Master of Idaho had directed that I be initiated by one lodge, passed the same night by another, and raised 1 week later by Keystone number 81, all without establishing proficiency. Then came the challenge. I must establish proficiency on all 3 degrees in open lodge at Keystone the 3rd week. Failing that, I could not be given my dues card. The rule in Idaho for many years may still be that way, was dues cards required proficiency. Catechism on a 3rd degree. I made it. I became a Master Mason on 15 March 1946 and established proficiency on all 3 degrees on 22 March 1946. And they gave me, it's in the files over here, they gave me a Bible that had a Masonic emblem on the cover and the details of my entering, passing, and raising, and the people who did it inscribed on the inside. So I still have it on the shelf over there. It was over 30 years later that I was able to visit Keystone Lodge number 81 after I had demitted to Semper Fidelis number 680. No one in Keystone knew me. Before the meeting, the master took me aside and said, when I was the secretary of this lodge, I processed your demit. If you will stand west of the altar and tell us where you've been all these years, we will not examine you. I did it. The great thing over the years, I was a Marine. I visited lodges everywhere I could find the opportunity. One of the privileges of visiting is both fellowship and learning new information about how other people perform. I will share a visit that will be enjoyable for those of you who have been a Marine or a soldier. Many years ago, when I was a young officer, I attended a lodge at Quantico, Virginia, when the Commandant of the Marine Corps was making a presentation. General Lemuel C. Shepard related his experience and joining Freemasonry in Europe immediately after World War I. 3 Marine officers who would become commandants of the Marine Corps joined Freemasonry in Koblenz, Germany, where Overseas Lodge number 40 met in an ancient German lodge. General Lejeune, General Wendell Neville, and General Shepherd. Overseas Lodge number 40 was created by dispensation from the Grand Lodge of Rhode Island. It was created as an outgrowth of Third Army Masonic Club that in a few months had attained a membership of 3,200 soldiers and Marine Masons. The lodge met almost daily from May the 1st, 1919 to July the 31st, 1919. Degrees were conferred on 517 candidates, and several other Marines who were generals were among the list that General Shepherd gave us. General Shepherd told an interesting story about General Lejeune's driver in the 2nd Army Division. General Pershing had given Marine General Lejeune command of the 2nd Army Division, so his driver was a soldier. Lejeune called his driver to take him to Koblenz and named the hour of departure. When he named the hour of departure, the sergeant said that he was going to ask permission not to be on duty at that time so he could go to Koblenz. The general denied him, saying, quote, "You will have some time after you deliver me in Koblenz." At the entrance to the lodge, when the general gave the sergeant some time off until 7 o'clock that night, the sergeant smiled and said, "I also have been told to report here this afternoon." They were initiated together. Isn't that a good story? General Shepherd finished his story by stating that when he submitted his application for Freemasonry, quote, "I was vouched for and assisted in my work by the gunner's sergeant in my company." General Shepherd had been a captain when he went through. And of course, General Lejeune had been given command of the 2nd Army Division, and that really burned the Army folks. And throughout the ages, they fixed it so that no more would there be an opportunity for a Marine to command an Army unit. So that's the way they set that aside. Okay, that's not my presentation. I'm ready to answer questions.
Where did you first meet Nick?
Nickerson, I believe it was in Vietnam.
Okay.
He was 3 MAF and I command of 1st Marines. And he was an interesting guy.
Innocent?
Interesting.
Oh, interesting. I thought you said innocent. I'm sorry.
Hardly innocent.
Have I got time to give you some garbage?
Take all the time you want.
at one time, he came down to my little abode on Hill 55 because during the night before, one of the little Vietnamese details had sent a missile off of leaning it on the front of a foxhole and firing it toward Da Nang, and it hit a South Vietnamese mine depot that was right across the estuary from 3MAF headquarters. And it blew all the windows lights out, and the air conditioning wasn't working, and he was mad. I thought he was going to relieve me. And I didn't know this guy very well. So he did know, and he and I were knowledgeable that we're Freemasons. But it seemed to me like that my time was about up. So I looked him in the eye and I said, General, I really feel sorry for those damn 50 colonels you have down there in your headquarters that don't have any air conditioning. Maybe they would like to come out in the bush and help us fight. And he got up and walked out and got in his helicopter and flew away. And I thought, oh boy, you've done it. But I really expected him to take me with him. But about 2 or 3 weeks later, when my end of my tour of 6 months, like they had, was up, he came back all smiles, sat in my little hooch, and he said, I got you now. You're coming to my staff. You thought you were going to be chief of staff of the 1st Marine Division, didn't you? And I said, well, I've been told I was. He said, you're not going there. You're going to be the deputy G3 of 3MAF. And that was, a brigadier was the G3 and I was the assistant. I said, what have I done to deserve that? And he said, you don't quite understand. General Tom Miller is going to move from being deputy chief of being G3 over to be chief of staff, and you're going to be a colonel in a brigadier job. And I cooled off. That was all right. But he was a strong person.
A dedicated Mason too.
Yeah, he was. And I hated to see him move from Jacksonville back to Maine.
Maine, yeah.
And I visited him several times when we went that way on Scottish Rite trips, particularly when I went to Northern Jurisdiction annual meeting. We dropped by in Maine and visited with the 2 of them.
And I remember him saying that you couldn't be a dedicated Mason unless you were an educated Mason.
That's right.
Yeah, he drove that into my head.
He was right. Wrong person.
Yes, he was.
Anybody else?
I don't really have a question, but I don't watch a whole lot of the news anymore. It's just too crazy what's going on there. But I did catch a few weeks ago about Albert Pike's statue being toppled over in Washington, D.C. And it made me think, I always wondered why they had those great big metal doors on the House of the Temple. And I guess it's a good thing that they have them.
Well, I think they destroyed that thing, or at least did some damage about it.
I think they toppled over his statue, but as far as I know, I don't think the house of the temple has been damaged.
No, I hadn't heard
Oh,
anything.
it has been. They probably did that because he was a brigadier in the Confederate forces.
Right, I knew that. It took, but it would take a lot less than that to topple a statue. I mean, they're even toppling over Abraham Lincoln. You know,
That's right. And Abraham Lincoln is the principal guy they should have surrounded and genuflect.
Yeah, it's turned from protesting to something a little higher and worse.
I'll tell you a story about Van Commander Kleinknecht sent me to Santiago, Chile to represent him in a meeting of the Spice Right in the Americas. And I met the Grand Commander Ralston from the northern jurisdiction, who was there and had just been crowned and hadn't been home to Cincinnati yet. And he was an enlisted U.S. Marine. I think he was either a deck sergeant or a gunner sergeant, one of those. But while we were down there, he invited me to come to Cincinnati and be the guest speaker for his official return. And when I got up there, they'd assembled about 1,500 people, including wives, in that one big auditorium. And he got really smart and all kinds of accolades for me. And when I took the podium, I said, he isn't aware that my son and I, when we make speeches, if you introduce us more than 15 seconds, the floor is yours. You can do the presentation. And I got a good giggle out of that. And then I said, I want to thank you for inviting me, because this is the first time that I have ever been asked to speak north of the Mason-Dixon line. And I want you to know I come in peace, because you incarcerated my grandfather in Fort Chase up near Columbus. And it is pretty obvious that you did not harm him, because he came home to Tennessee and married twice and fathered 19 children. And my mother was number 18. So thank you very much. Well, all 1,500 of those people got up, stood up, applauded, and it didn't really matter what I said after that. I could have quit and they wouldn't have cared. Tom, you got anything you want to tell them?
Not a bit. I'm glad to be here and see those folks. It makes me feel like I'm close.
It's good to see both of you.
Yeah.
Like I said, at the very,
Say that again.
like I said at the very beginning, when we do some events here, like the past Masters, Widows, and Award Night and our 75th and things of that nature, we are going to go ahead and open up a Zoom portal like this so we can not only record the event, but so everyone who's not available to come down can come join us and still participate in that fellowship. You've made a comment earlier about how great it is for the technology that we have. While it's a hindrance at some point, Howard seems to think that my phone grows out of my hands.
I think it's an extension of your hand.
But past that, we do have the ability to do some pretty cool stuff at this point. So I can't thank you both enough for showing and being here today. This is a great thing for us.
We appreciate being included.
Yeah, and it's my pleasure to do it. I'm sorry I'm so old I can't recite, but I enjoy doing it. Thank you.
We enjoyed you doing it.
Great. We hope to see you all again soon. And we thank the Master of the Lodge for putting all this together, sir. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I have great people around me.
I've been very pleased with the visitations up here, and this place is safe, and we're glad to live here. It's hard to believe I moved up here almost 16 years ago. That's unbelievable.
For those of you who do not know, Lloyd has written a book. I'm waiting on it to arrive at my door because our Barnes & Noble doesn't have it. However, I cannot wait for it to arrive. We've decided, well, Joe Reyes, Worship Brother Joe, and I have decided that we're going to get a book, and the plan is to come visit you, Lloyd, but we all know what the pandemic is doing right now with that, and have you sign it so we can put it in our memory case there at the lodge.
I'd love to do that.
So,
We got to wait. We got to wait and get the permission to have people come in as visitors. However,
Yes.
I could outside. I could, if I knew when you're coming, I could meet you.
okay.
Or you could mail it to me and I'll sign it and mail it back.
Okay. Easy day. I'd prefer to come visit because last time I was there, like I told you, I sat in your living room. Actually, I think I was sitting where Tom is sitting, and I was there for an hour and a half feeling like a little kid again. I love listening to some of the stories. So
What's the title of the book?
I was a spectator in The Greatest Generation. And I think two or three companies have it. You can put that title in the search on the internet and it'll come right up and tell you.
Okay.
Sir, Worshipful, this is Jeffrey Horning. I just wanted to say thank you for your time tonight. And while we were doing this, my wife came into the office and slipped me an envelope. And I think it applies to the fact of what you were talking about tonight. So I have received my dues card.
All right.
Delivered
at an appropriate time. And I wanted to say thank you for your time tonight. It was fantastic.
Well, I've had a lot of fun visiting Freemasons all over the world almost. Went to the Holy Land. I went to Australia and Japan and Korea.
Behind the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, went behind the Iron Curtain and saw how the folks came out of Czechoslovakia. It was a real fun trip, but I was cautioned by the intelligence folks in Washington to go with my civilian passport and to never let anybody on the trip know that I was a military guy. And only 3 people before, including my wife, knew that, and they kept it. And getting out of East Germany behind the Iron Curtain wasn't really much fun, but we made it.
Wow. See, it's those type of stories that, like I told you earlier, that if we don't take a break and sit down and listen and learn from those who've gone before us, we are doing a disservice not only to the history and of our lodge and the fraternity, but its future as well.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity, and I know several others have as well, to sit in your living room and to talk with you and to hear your stories and to hear your life. But if we don't continue allowing others to know about this, then we're doing a disservice to those who are coming after us.
Well, if you can show this to some of the others who wish to know, it's fun for me, but it might not be fun for them. I don't know.
I know a lot of them have expressed interest. I know a couple. There's a gunnery sergeant in Louisiana right now who is on duty and was told he couldn't be on a Zoom call. Brother Mac Noakes, Worship Brother Mac Noakes, and he'll watch it here in a little bit when he gets a little bit of a break. And we've had several others do that as well. So one of the benefits of our lodge, as both of you know, is we have brothers literally all over the world. So putting some of these educations up is, like I said, kept them engaged in our lodge.
And interestingly enough, what you're saying is what Commandant General Lemuel Shepard said to the lodge in Quantico, which was Luzerne Lodge, is what they had his name. So that was why Shepard was there, and his theme was, we learn by visiting with people and knowing what goes on in the world.
Does anyone have any other questions for Lloyd, for Tom, for anyone else that's here?
Oh, we sure do appreciate it, though.
We had fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Everyone, I appreciate this. Lloyd, I will put this on YouTube and I will send you the link here in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Great seeing you, Lloyd. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.